Okay, in case you missed it, I just wanted to go over the quote integration techniques. We read paragraphs 10 to 11, and then we did the color collaboration Jamboard. And then we went through and talked about different quote integration techniques. So there are 4 on this paper. A quote integration technique is taking a quote from your source and incorporating it into your piece of writing. So there's 4 methods. The first rule is probably one that all of you are using. It's the most common that I see in your papers coming up from 9th grade. And that's when you have an introductory or explanatory phrase that is not a complete sentence and ends with a verb. And if you have that, you're going to separate the phrase and your quotation with a comma. And this also applies to introductory quotes, like according to King. So this is your statements like the text says, the author stated. After you said or stated, or insist, or asserts, you put a comma and then your full sentence quote. So my example says, the clergyman insists, comma. So to me the comma is just signaling now I'm going to give you a full sentence quote. In Birmingham, recent public events have given indication that we all have opportunity for a new constructive and realistic approach to racial problems. And then I would analyze further there. You have you notice my citation. I have the quote ends. I give the parentheses, para 2 for paragraph 2, close the parentheses, and period. And that's because I have the clergyman already cited in my tag. Otherwise, you also need to include who the author is in your citation. So King, para 2, unless you say King states, comma, then you already have his last name, so you don't need it in that citation after the quote. So what you're going to do for number 1 is answer the question and use the strategy that I just explained. So it says, in your opinion, what is the most important statement in paragraphs 10 to 11? You're going to introduce the quote with an explanatory phrase. So you'll say, King Jr. stated, King Jr. said, the text says, comma, give me a full sentence quote. Then, after you have the full sentence quote, you're going to give one more sentence that analyzes how that sentence impacts the overall message of the text. So you can pause and do that, and then you can go down to number 2 when you're ready. Number 2 is to introduce the quotation with a complete sentence and a colon. So if you have a comma in this situation, you will create a comma splice. So you notice I have a full sentence. The clergyman asserts that the negotiation between demonstrators and local leaders can be achieved through the law and common sense. So again, I'm using quotes and evidence from the clergyman's statement. You're using it from paragraphs 10 to 11. So I have a full sentence, and then my evidence is also a full sentence. So if I put a comma here, I'm splicing those 2 independent clauses in the middle. And I don't want to do that. That's called a comma splice. That's where you have a comma where there should be a period. So in this case, though, you have your analysis first, and then you add a colon. That colon signals, now I'm going to give you a full sentence piece of evidence to support my analysis. And this is nice because sometimes you don't have evidence, interpretation, analysis. Sometimes your analysis you want to come first because maybe you already gave a piece of evidence and now you need to connect ideas, which is analysis. So that's a nice spot to use this strategy. So number 2 says, how does King further develop his claim that direct action is necessary to gain justice? So what's like his supporting claims for that? So what you'll do first is answer that question. So provide a 1-sentence analysis to answer the question. Then insert the colon. And then give a full sentence of evidence to support your analysis after that colon. Now rule 3 gets a little bit harder, but once you get good at this, it really can improve the flow and fluency of your writing and make your writing sound much better. And that's when you make a part of a quotation, part of your own sentence without any punctuation between your words and the words you're quoting. And I love this because basically you're making the evidence work for you instead of the evidence working you. So you still put the text evidence in direct quotes, you just won't have a full sentence. You're choosing just the part of the sentence that works the best and incorporating it into your own ideas. So my example is the clergyman believed that the, quote, demonstrations are unwise and untimely. And just a little note down here. So you can also change words in quotes that you're taking to fit your sentence by using brackets. So for example, it says the clergyman felt that they expressed understanding that honest convictions in racial manners could be handled in court. Paragraph 1. Now the original text said we right here, but I needed it to say they in order for it to fit my sentence. Because if I said the clergyman felt that we expressed, that would be poor grammar. That would be incorrect. So in order to change that we, I just put a bracket, I put the word they, and then I end the bracket, and that signals to my reader that I've changed that word in the sentence to fit my sentence. If you look at this W down here, you can even do it just with letters. So if you had a capital W, you need a lowercase, you could just simply change that capital to a lowercase, just like you see here. Awkward, but it works. All right, so 3, you're going to apply this Rule 3 in paragraphs 10 to 11. How does King respond to the clergyman's view that demonstrations are unwise and untimely? And if you struggle, look on page 9, paragraph 11, about 7 lines down. I liked where he said we have waited for more than 340 years for a God-given and constitutional rights. See if you can take just that small part, more than 340 years, and work it into your own ideas to answer that question. Just in case you're struggling. Some of you are already good at this, though. Now, Rule 4 is when you want to create a really sexy sentence. So you're choosing the most important information, and you shape the quotes into your own unique sentences using multiple short quotations. So smaller portions of larger quotes as part of your own sentence. So let's say there was something in paragraph 10 that I loved that really connected to something in paragraph 3. This way I can take a small part of my quote from paragraph 10 and a small part of my quote from paragraph 3, and I can combine them into one sentence to make that connection. And that's really nice because you're really making the evidence work for you, connecting ideas and making the text work to your advantage. So my example is the clergyman insists that they recognize the natural impatience of the demonstrators because their hopes are slow in being realized. And what's interesting about this is I have 2 quotes from paragraph 3, and I cite them both right after the quotation ends. And that's what you should be doing. You don't wait until your end of the sentence to cite. You always cite immediately after that quote ends. And yes, these are both from paragraph 3. However, I have to cite them both as soon as that quote ends. Okay? What's also interesting about this is the words natural impatience in the original text came after this idea of their hopes being slowly realized. So you can see how I use those. I flip-flop them to make them work in my own idea, which is really nice because that's what you're doing. You're forming your own analysis based on what the text says rather than just regurgitating the information presented in the text. So 4 says, what are some examples or reasoning? What examples or reasoning does King give to show that the demonstrators have legitimate and unavoidable patience? And if you struggle with using multiple portions of the text, start basic. So you could say, King gives multiple examples when he says that blank, give a quote, and blank, give a quote. Or blank because blank. In the blank, you would put those smaller portions of text. All right, please submit this before you do your tone quick write.